This FedGov Today program is sponsored by NDIA, the National Defense Industrial Association. On this edition of FedGov Today with Francis Rose, the transparency road ahead for the government's dollar deals on AI.
It becomes real clear real fast whether you kind of succeeded or failed, and if you failed, was it because you took a smart risk, it just didn't work out? And that's cool. I'll applaud that all day long. I'll celebrate that.
Former OFPP Administrator Joe Jordan on FedGov Today in just a moment. You can join Defense Innovators August 27th through 29th in Washington, D.C. for the NDIA Emerging Technologies for Defense Conference. It features a great lineup of top government leaders, classified briefings, and a new Global Defense Hackathon. You can see the current lineup and register at ndiatechexpo.org. That's ndiatechexpo.org. The General Services Administration has a series of new agreements in place for agencies to use artificial intelligence. The newest agreements with Box for discounts of up to 75% for a year. Joe Jordan's president and CEO of Octoparo. He's former administrator of federal procurement policy. Joe, welcome. Thanks for joining me today. What do you make of a lot of these efforts by OneGov to get discounts for federal agencies on things that are used all across the federal government? Welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Francis. Great to talk to you as always. Look, I think that aspects of this make a lot of sense, right? More unified approach to engaging the large AI providers. You know, in this case, the deals have been reached with Anthropic and OpenAI and Google, as opposed to every agency going off on their own and cutting one deal. But what's been announced to date around these like $1, government-wide agreements is, that's just baloney, right? First of all, $1 is a fake number. It's just because you can't take anything for free if you're the government, so you have to put something against it. Second of all, these are all like teaser rates. I mean, they're not real. They're not long-term. They don't provide any of the services, integration, platform, systems, things that agencies are really going to need. So I want to be glass half full and say that this is the first step along a path where the government will be thoughtful and move quickly in engaging domestic artificial intelligence service providers in improving the effectiveness and efficiency of government delivery. But it's also wrapped up in an effort that where GSA is just doing a total land grab through mandates instead of actually improved quality and service, and potentially returning to the bad old days where there was no competition for contracts and marketplaces and things like that. So kind of time will tell.
What do you want to see agencies do to make sure that they don't get stuck in these arrangements and then 363 days from now have a hard time extricating themselves when they want to try a different platform and have already built a lot of infrastructure inside the platform that they've tried for the first year, or just decide, hey, the rate hikes are not something that we either can afford or want to afford, and so we're going to try a different product and have how do they avoid making a difficult time for themselves at that point?
Yeah, great question. You don't want them to have lock-in, right? Like, you don't want this to be somebody saying, hey, look what a deal I got 10 years ago on my 10-year ARM mortgage. Like, how are those people feeling today? So the key will be the terms, the length of these contracts, what they actually cover. Are there any custom use cases and systems, and how they're deploying these systems. So what I'd like to see is agencies piloting various efforts, having realistic commitments with defined outputs, outcomes, and time horizons, and of course, budget and cost, and collaborate on some of these things and with each other, whether it be put out there publicly or just in various intra-government convenings, so that they can learn from each other as they try to move quickly. That is what I would love to see.
The challenge that I see in that, though, Joe, is if each agency is figuring that piece of it out on its own, and then there's some community of best practices to try to avoid risk, then the risk actually becomes that we're kind of back where we started. The price is lower for everybody, but that gets away from the OneGov idea that GSA is trying to drive. Is there something that I'm not seeing, or is that a risk that you see also?
So it's fair. The only tweak would be I wouldn't want to minimize risk. I think that's a bad approach in this case. I want to maximize potential benefit. And so take risks, but take smart risks, take bite-sized risks, and then share the outcomes from those efforts. That's more what I'm saying. Don't minimize risk. That's just going to cause stagnation and we're not going to move forward. But then also think through things like, right, when Amazon Web Services first kind of entered government and the private sector with really effective and low price cloud offerings, everybody rushed in and then realized, well, if I ever change my mind and want to take my data out, it is prohibitively expensive to the point that then Europe said you can't do that. And AWS across the board last year said, no, you can, migrate your data off our platforms for free. But that was a long time coming. Learn from that and experiences like that in federal technology to make sure that this time it's not like, hey, what a deal we got. We have this access for $1, but it becomes, a lock-in, like you said, where switching costs are too high and innovation is stagnated.
Yeah, that's the feedback that I keep getting from people that are in the federal government now that are trying to figure out what they have to do to make sure that they're not stuck 363 days from now or whatever it is. If they decide this doesn't work for us, it doesn't quite do what we thought it was going to do, we just don't use it as, there's a million reasons, and the reasons don't even matter. What matters is folks understand maybe now better than they did 10 or 15 or 20 years ago. My strategy to get into the situation is not the only thing that's important. My strategy to get out might be just as important.
Yes. And, again, generative AI, models that people are used to leveraging, that's not the whole ecosystem of how agencies will deploy artificial intelligence tools to improve their services. And so, again, making sure that this is a flexible and evolving platform so new entrants have a chance to get in will be really important. And that worries me because GSA has historically been terrible at that. They're largely anti-small business. Look at all the OneGov and FAR reforms now. They are in no way good for small, innovative businesses. And they are about getting these companies on the schedule, getting the volume, the dollar volume through the schedule more than doing it the best way. GSA is not known for being the best, most efficient, effective builder nor deployer of technology platforms. So they've got some trust to build for sure. There are a lot of concerns with the folks in agencies whom I speak to. So again, I want to be glass half full. This could be a step along a really productive path, but we've got a long way to go before I can say that.
What would be the next steps to see then for this to be the first step or one of the early steps on that productive path that you just alluded to?
Sure. So the big announcements all say, hey, we've added the leading American AI companies, products onto the multiple award schedule and at this, $1 pricing. Okay, well, what products and what are the terms and how are they being used and deployed? And have agencies thought through some of those use cases, pilots, or large scale development efforts? And I want to see how some of those things play out. And so it would be great to see again, centralized funding for people to take risks and try some things using these contract vehicles and these agreements and see how they work. And then we will be able to kind of better ascertain what are the benefits and true costs behind these agreements.
I guess the good news about that is there are already somewhere between 2,000 and 2,500 use cases across the government based on the last AI inventory that came out of OMB. I think that was in December of last year, so toward the end of the Biden administration. So there's already a lot of people out there that are already elbow deep in using AI to accomplish specific mission goals and not just going, hey, this looks like something cool, so we'll see what it does.
That's right. And look, I'm not here to, bash things that are well-intended and could be positive. So if you look at the administration's America's AI Action Plan, and there are two big OMB memos that helped kind of move that towards implementation and being actioned. I have concerns with all of those things, but there's some good stuff in there. And so if again, these are ways to ensure that agencies are furthering their use of AI, but with the best possible pricing and leveraging the broad buying power of the U.S. federal government, great. But that's not exactly what the data available to date would tell us.
What's the best carrot and what's the best stick from either GSA or your former office at OFPP to make sure that agencies don't get stuck a year from now in situations where they're locked into whatever it is they decided to try for $1?
Yeah, on the carrot side, and I'm being realistic, right? Sure. There are all sorts of things that could be out there, but that I've seen actually work on the carrot and stick side of the carrot. Some centralized, some non-agency funding that goes to support some of those agencies' technologies. So like the Technology Modernization Fund and transformation efforts funded by, be it OMB or a centralized pot of money that reward taking the smart risk, doing things, that further the AI action plan initiatives, et cetera. That's always great. Money talks. On the stick side, it's as simple as transparency about what you've done is enough, because it becomes real clear real fast whether you kind of succeeded or failed. And if you failed, was it because you took a smart risk? It just didn't work out. And that's cool. I'll applaud that all day long. I'll celebrate that. That's great. We need more of those sorts of failures. Fail fast, fail smart. Or did you just do the same thing in the old ways with new technology? And of course you were going to fail. And so just, again, highlighting that is enough of a stick.
Joe, it's always great to catch up with you. I really appreciate your insight, my friend.
Oh, thanks, Francis. It's a lot of fun to talk about.
You can read more about the new licensing deals and the OneGov initiative on today's show page at fedgovtoday.com. The Department of Defense is revitalizing a NASA concept for the 21st century. The technology readiness level will help the government, quote, evaluate technology readiness for humans. Chris DeLuca, Director of Specialty Engineering in the Office of the Undersecretary of Defense for Research and Engineering, will tell you about it on the next FedGov Today TV. You can watch the debut on ABC7 in Washington and on the FedGov Today YouTube channel at 10:30 Eastern Time this coming Sunday morning. If you missed the debut, you can watch anytime at fedgovtoday.com and on YouTube. The next FedGov Today podcast is coming this coming Tuesday. The FAR Overhaul hits overdrive. To learn how, just follow the FedGov Today podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your shows. And you can always listen on demand at fedgovtoday.com. I'm Francis Rose. Thanks for listening.